Hi, Deacon John Wilson here, Education Enrichment Director for West Angeles Church, home of our Emeritus Bishop, Bishop Charles Blake, former presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ, and our pastor, Charles E. Blake. Here to talk to you, parents of your, I'd say 10th grade and under, maybe 11th. Please beware of a thing called grading for equity. Now, I'm going to do a separate video about it later, but it's not a good thing. Because it says that rather than teaching students, our black students who are way behind in their math scores. Listen, we have some cities in the United States where none of the graduating seniors, I'm saying where 11th graders and 10th graders regularly are not at math level. They're several years behind. And it's not getting better. It got worse during the pandemic. Now, a lot of you are trying to decide about the summer bridge program. I don't know why your students are not in the summer bridge program, which contains the CSU Summer Algebra Institute. Why wouldn't you have your students in that to get stronger in math? And the reason you're probably not involves their activities. But there's another video coming about that, so stay tuned here. But I'm here about grading for equity. I don't think that you should reduce the requirements to allow students to pass, which disproportionately is supposed to favor our kids. But you're saying they can pass on by without mastery of math. They can be at fair, average, poor, and still get a B or an A. And you base it just on the work they've done, not whether it's on time, nothing like that. The concept of averaging for grades is out the window. I don't understand that. What is going on with these people? Now, what you got to do as a parent is give your students enrichment to keep them from failing and to help them to learn the subject. Get them these opportunities. We're adding a lot of math type stuff to our program in the lower grades to get students ready. I'm surprised that our programs are not this past year. We did pick up in the homework club toward the end, but we could help a lot more students with their math. But the real problem is that people aren't doing that. They're too busy, and the schools are just willing to pass your kids through. It's kind of like social promotion, right? That we say we don't want. Listen, a high school diploma needs to mean something. It needs to mean something. Come on now. It has to. It's so obvious that it needs to mean something, that you've mastered your subjects. Maybe not mastered, but certainly very proficient at least. And scores are not indicating that. And we talk about we want our kids, our black kids, to have higher paying jobs. How is that going to happen if we're grading for equity? If students can sit around the whole semester, not do their homework, listen to me, not do their assignments, and suddenly pass in a bunch of assignments and get a C or a B, actually a B in some cases, is ridiculous. Test scores don't matter anymore, you know? And what's going to start happening is if this gets widespread, colleges are going to look at B's and stuff and wonder why students don't have A's. And we don't want to see that happen. Private schools, certainly. UCs are going to have to think about that. What does it mean to have a B or C average in math? What does it mean in certain subjects you have that? What does it mean? So grading for equity is not good news. I'm going to do a more detail. I was going to review a book about it. Perhaps I will. But I'm going to share with you a great article by an associate of mine named Maya Keshavan. Maya, if I messed up your name, please pray for me. She is really a great parent, one of the top parents I know. She lives in San Francisco. I believe she has two children that went through the San Francisco school district. She herself is an engineer. I think her kids have STEM majors, at least one, maybe two. She's been working hard on this math, saving math in the Save Math group, which I'm a part of. And she's written a great article that I'm going to go over. I'll include it a link to it below. Please read the article, parents. Stop and read it. Even if you're a grandma, you're seeing this, your students are already gone through college. It's time for you to start looking back and helping, reaching back and helping. Help the kids around you. Help your nieces and nephews. Help your cousins and their children. Start spreading the word about this insidious stuff like grading for equity. Read this article. You'll see what I'm talking about. So here's the article of which I'm speaking. It's in Beyond Cron. It's a pretty good little publication. I've looked at it. I see Maya writes for us, so I'm gonna look a lot more now. Maya Keshavan on just June 2nd. That will be yesterday, actually. It didn't seem like it. Hey, y'all. You can see that Maya is a Superman fan if you look at that picture. And that's where her and I talk about a lot, the comics. And y'all know that's a side hobby of mine. And there's Lois Lane as Superman. Anyway, sorry, Rex, if you're hearing this, I got off subject there. Sorry. Schools must address causes, not move the goalposts. My. Sometimes headlines are stupid. Sometimes headlines are not right. In fact, don't believe all the headlines you hear and see these days. They're all so screwed up. You see, I've seen all kinds of bad headlines, which is why I have ground news, another whole subject. Schools must address causes of failures or lack of success, not just change the rules so more can pass. And you can read this article. It is unbelievable. There are a couple of parts. Let's start. I love the beginning of this. Then they have one of the greatest, I'd say, satirical paragraphs I've ever seen that provide truth to you as a reader. It's very well written, by the way. Last week, I had the San Francisco USD School Board education meeting in the background. She had it on turn on. I do that too. Like with Long Beach and so on, I'm doing other work and I'm listening in. Also, I listen regularly to the LA School Board, etc. Got something to say about that happened recently too. I heard grading for equity and I almost turned it off. Look at that. This is not my problem, I told myself. I'm tired. Remember, she's graduated too. However, grandmas, I want y'all to see this. However, she does view it as her problem. It is my problem. It's all of our problem. We care about public education. If you care about where your tax dollars go, I don't care if you have kids in school or not. Think about your cousins and them, your friends and their children. Hallelujah, our whole community, our Black community. We've got to care about that. Well, she does. Listen to this, there's a larger movement under which this grading for equity initiative and the recent math wars, listen, encapsulated in the California Math Framework fall. People are trying to address the real equity gaps. Listen, by moving the goalposts instead of addressing the cause. You got to read this article. Parents, beware of your students struggling in math, suddenly they're doing well. You should look into why. What's different than it was before? Maybe they're grading your students softer. If you haven't taken any action, they're grading softer. This is why you need programs like ours. We'll check on that and build their skills after they do their so-called homework. If too many under-resourced students aren't succeeding in Algebra 2, listen to this. This is terrific. If too many under-resourced students aren't succeeding in Algebra 2, very satirical, it's easier to remove it as a requirement than work to increase proficiency. Oh my, we don't want to do that. Sorry, I added that part. If too many under-resourced students are failing in high school, it's easier to redefine passing than provide the resources to rectify it or improve it. That is the whole thing about grading for equity. What we're left is no meaningful progress, but it looks good on paper, doesn't it? That's why the politicians like grading for equity. It's an immediate fix that they can claim to stay in power. At the end of the day, I bet it's all about political power, especially in the state of California, where there is no political competition. It's all about who can do it better from their perspective. It's easier to focus on superficial instead of root causes. Oh, that's true. I used to see that in engineering. There's a lot of failures in a piece of hardware. There's people that just want to repair it and move on. But my job was to find out what's causing the failures. A few years ago, San Francisco K-5 literacy and K-8 math curriculum were audited to dismal results, which spurred district to pilot new ones. This is good news. I really hope the district concentrates on the outcomes of these changes. Students can't read or add, and it's how you deal with the outcomes, right? If the outcomes aren't favorable, you got to work harder, not change the rules. That's what I think she means. Of course she does. No amount of fretting over grades will change this. You really need to read this article. It is incredible. There's another little part in here that I like where she talks about the math framework and the problems we have with that. This is this is Brian Conrad, who I got to know really well. This is where Brian Conrad, professor of math, director of undergraduate studies in math at where? Stanford. Woo! Enter the chat. He read almost every study cited in the second draft, wrote an incredible paper exposing all the miscitations and misinformation. The California math framework is fake. If you're a California counselor, California math person, LUSD math expert, who I think y'all are faltering right now in your job trying to get rid of Algebra 2. If you're a so-called math expert, or you are one in Long Beach and Compton, you need to understand the framework is garbage. It's based on faulty data. And the fact that you won't look into it is interesting to me. That tells me you really don't care about these struggling Black and brown kids. Because if you read it, you'd find out that it's fake. It's a fake document. Dr. Conrad has to be nicer about it. I don't have to be. He's a good man. The framework debates also expose weakness in the math area. A to G. This is a great paragraph. Boy, Maya, you hit it out of the park. The framework debates also exposed a weakness in UC A to G math and how certain classes were using a loophole to qualify Algebra 2 when they didn't really meet the standards, like this intro to data science. Now listen to this. I talked about this last month. UC workshops comprised of math experts tried to close the loophole. This drew attention to the politicians and the state legislators. Introduced a bill, AB 1217, which you expect me to hear strengthens the math, strengthens the requirement for Algebra 2. Nope, which would water down the math requirements and, in fact, not require Algebra 2. And right now, theoretically, Algebra 2 is not required, but not on this program. Listen to me. I will never, ever again say the words A through G requirements. And you parents should ignore it too. It doesn't mean anything all of a sudden because the legislator can just change the rules. I'm here to tell you in our program, we want students to take 3 years of math and 1 year of quantitative reasoning or math, which would be 4 years of math. I have different tracks to assure that. We have a summer program to strengthen the math requirements. If you want your students to have these great AI and science jobs in the future when they can make a lot of money, you don't want things like AB 217, which was killed last week very quietly, thank God. But it'll be back, just like Grading for Equity showed up out of nowhere and shocked Maya while she was listening in the background. Maya, I hope you're okay. Dr. Jelani Nelson, the professor and chair of computer science. That's my guy, Jelani. I got to go up there and have a cup of coffee with you, Jelani. I got to figure that out. Dr. Jelani Nelson, professor and chair of the computer science division at Berkeley, stood alone. Was UC with him? No. In fact, they came in and made some kind of ridiculous statement that stood in the middle. We'll abide by anything you say at these testimonies in the Senate. He stood alone at the table in opposition, trying to explain to politicians why this is not equity. Are you kidding me? You got to click on these links and read them. Parents, I need you. That's enough of that. You can see the rest of the article down below. I don't want to make this such a long video. We have got parents, I need you engaged. I'm forming a parent council to help you to be engaged. You've got to get engaged. You've got to know what's going on in the classroom. What's happening to your student? Not so much their grades. You can't trust that. Are they learning the material? We have a great diagnostic test. and a great diagnostic program called Ed Ready. We would love to run your youth through and see where they stand. Even if they don't take the summer program, get over to my program. Let's have them take that. Okay, we got to know where our students are. Do not trust grades. I think grading for equity is already here in LA County. I've heard some examples of it. I've heard parents wondering why their students got an F and they got 2 zeros on exams. They said they should be graded differently because they're black. No, no, no. That's not the right way to handle this. Not at all. And as I close this video, some of these white progressives and some black elites, stop trying to help us. Instead, let's figure out why we can't train, why as a community we can't help you, or why you can't teach our kids to score high, to do better in math, not score high, not only score high, but to actually learn math. God bless you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.